Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the R2F show. If you're new to us, we talk about all things related to Islam, particularly things that relate to deviation, spiritual abuse, and basically trying to get our ummas, particularly in the West, on the right path spiritually, mentally, and physically as well. So tonight's topic, we are going to be talking about a hot topic that everybody's been talking about. You see all the clips, you see all the news that's out there. Many people are fearing that we are on the brink of World War III. We've already for multiple years been having the whole Israel genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza. We've had that going on for the last few years, and recently, Israel, not recently, but throughout the times, Israel has bombed or attacked Iran. Um, and most recently, Iran has been striking back at Israel. And I think the latest thing that happened was United States bombed Iran, one of their nuclear facilities that appeared to be empty of any nuclear uh, armaments or whatever.
I'm shocked.
And then Iran retaliated by attacking a military base in Qatar, which I believe I heard something about. They kind of gave them a heads up, like, "Hey, we're about to throw some missiles over there, so hurry up
Yes.
and get your people out of there, so we don't kill anybody." And the latest thing, there was some kind of now ceasefire. So, without going into all the details, we wanted to kind of just bring people back on track, right? And so that we don't get caught up with all these smoke and mirrors that are going on. We had a show similar to this when we were talking about Donald Trump, where people were, Muslims were out there advocating for him, promoting him, and endorsing him. And he's going to be the great president. He's going to help the Palestinians and yada yada yada. And he didn't do any of that. He went the opposite way. And we had a show reminding people of that as well. So we're going to do the same thing here, talking about the Israel, Iran, Palestine, and United States whole dilemma that's going on right now. So what are you guys' thoughts on what's going on?
So you want me to go first?
Go right ahead, bro.
Okay, I'll just say this. I have a question for the hosts and for the audience. Where do you think, and I could be slightly off by this, but there's definitely a significant amount, but where do you think the most people who claim to be Jews, as far as in the Middle East region or whatever, where do you think the most Jews are located? Now, maybe you might say, okay, Israel. Let's take Israel or the Zionist state of Israel out of it. Where do you think the most Jews are located?
Iran.
You got one guess. Iran. Yes. So if there is a huge population of Jews, people who are, adhering to Judaism, the faith, the lineage, whatever you want to call it, there is a massive amount of Jews that live in Iran. So just let that sink in for a second. And we have to really stop getting our emotions caught up in, especially geopolitics. You have to remove the fact that you think this country is Muslim, this country is Christian, this country is, Jewish or whatever. These people are about power, money, control, protecting their empires, protecting their dynasties, their kingdoms, over all else. It's over religion. It's over country. It's over people. They really are about protecting, expanding, their power and influence. So as long as you look at it from that level, I think you'll be safe. But if we get our emotions tied up into it, we are going to get whipped around by this thing, and you'll be confused as to what I thought they hated each other. None of these people hate each other. Newsflash: Iran, America, and Israel are friends.
Absolutely. And as Mubarak said about getting your emotions tied into this, right? You'll see these Muslim countries, these Muslim leaders be all around the Yahud, right? All around the Zionist state of Israel. And in theory, yes, they can go and drive out the Yahud, drive out the Israelis from Palestine, from Jerusalem, and liberate that land. Why don't they? Because they're in leagues with them, right? There's a whole like Arab league of these Arab leaders who are actively supporting the Israelis and vice versa. They're giving money over here, they're giving weapons over here, technology here, back and forth. They invite them over to the countries. They like the only people that care about it are the civilians, because they're affected by it. But for the king, your goal isn't to do what's best for Islam or for your people. It's to do what's best for yourself. And oftentimes that doesn't correlate to what's best for your whole country, what's best for your Muslims. That's why it's so rare for people like Ibrahim Traore to exist, because he's trying to do what's best for his people, and they're trying to get him out of here for that exact reason. So just don't be surprised by the things that go on inside of the world.
And Mubarak mentioned the things that these people care about, and it all boils down to power. Because you could say money, but money gives you power, and that's their religion. For all of it, it's a religious show, it's an Islamic show, so power is their religion. And as Muslims, everything that we do is supposed to be going back to like worshiping God, securing our place in the hereafter, preventing from going to Allah's punishment. That's our goals. Like, so you can look at the context of most everything we do, besides when we get distracted by worldly affairs, is governed by, okay, I want to go to Jannah, I want to go to heaven, I want to avoid hell, I want to please Allah. And if you look at the context of everything they're doing, and it helps put a lot of things into perspective when you actually look at it from that viewpoint. Okay, if these people care about power, that's their religion. They want to seek power by any means necessary, right? Then it connects all the dots, right? When you have that, I forget, what is it, Arkham's theory or whatever, like the simplest solution, Arkham's razor, right? The simplest solution is like the solution. When the only thing that adds up all the dots, when you're like, wait, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. Why would Iran, warn the U.S. that, hey, we're about to bomb you, get all your people out of there? Why would going back to like, Iran's the defender of the Palestinian people? Well, why, when the Hamas negotiator was in Iran under this protection, he got assassinated, but somehow Israel can't figure out how to assassinate the actual head leader of Iran, who just walks around like the streets and stuff, right? So, Hezbollah work with, you look at all these things and like, okay, yeah, when you look at the power, and like, okay, the people that are trying to gain power, right, and they have the same objective. I want power for myself, and if I could use somebody that maybe has more power or that can kind of add to my power, they're actually going to be my helper, right? We look in the Holy Quran, the awliya. They're my awliya. They're my friends. Even though we might not be like, I actually want to eventually get more power than you, and we're enemies that way. But what you can provide me, I can actually obtain more power, obtain more land, obtain more control. And that's the only way it adds up. And that's why I get discouraged whenever I starting to pay attention to politics, because it's like, what's the point? Because it's all the same. It's like this, like we talk about cults. It's the same playbook over and over. And I know we wanted to bring up some of those things, and we can get into them. But like, even going back to as far as I know, going back to like Pearl Harbor, you could see the same play being ran over and over. And I'm pretty sure you can go back centuries back to the same thing being done over and over and over to facilitate a select tiny group of people gaining more power.
Exactly. It's never going to change. Joffrey just mentioned that you can go back all the way to the Crusades. The Fatimids were not supporting the Seljuks in fighting the Crusaders. There are both Muslim nations, Muslim leaderships, but the Crusaders were coming to conquer what? Jerusalem. Surprise. All right. So this has been the most contested land of all time. And so if you think that Muslims are just going to randomly all of a sudden come together now and pushing back, it's not really in the cards. Even if there was, say, a Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi today, right? He is getting criticized and probably killed by other Muslims. You want to know why? Because when Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi goes and has to fight the Seljuks to take over the entire Muslim world, he killed Muslims, this freaking demon. He's freaking Yahudi. He's going to get killed. So it's not going to lend itself towards what we have today. It's not going to equate to today. It's just not how it works.
Do either of y'all watch wrestling? Like the WWE, WWF?
Oh,
Used to, yeah.
Oh, no.
Used to.
Yeah.
So if you understand, I mean, maybe when you were a kid, you probably, was like, thinking that, it was real. But even there are lots of adults who watch it, but it's entertaining, but it's not, they know that it's not real. They're not really, when they do that stomp and rake across the face, he's not really getting his eyes raked. I mean, it's like when, when they do all these theatrics and the hits and the punches and the kicks and the jumps off the top rope and the slams, and when the guy is like doubling over in pain, he's acting like he's just about to die, and all of a sudden he pops up and then he does a fantastic move or whatever. The thing is, if you have ever watched wrestling, or if you're an adult, let's say if you're over the age of 12 and you watch wrestling and you think this is absolutely real, you're smarter and have a stronger intellect than some of the people who are watching some of these theatrics going on in the world now. And if you believe this is real, after you know kind of what's going on. And so maybe that's a little bit of an insult. I won't say you're not as smart, but it's like wrestling. Let me just say that, okay? And the reason why I say that is because you have, for instance, if we just back up a little bit and ask the question, what does Israel want to do? They want the Gaza Strip for themselves. They want to have the gas or the resources and the real estate and make it into a resort or just their whole thing. They want the greater Israel, whatever they want to do. So once you know the objective, how could they do it? If they just armed up and just took the place, it would look really bad from a PR perspective and they wouldn't have a chance. So what do they have to do? They have to create some justification for it. So if we even look at the most recent developments with Iran fighting Israel and then America bombing Iran and then America saying ceasefire or whatever, if you look at it, they want to do something, and usually you don't really have to know everything. You just have to understand how they work. And so it's one or two things. They want you to think that they hate each other. They need a boogeyman. So Iran plays the role of the boogeyman, the big bad Muslim, Middle East, whatever. They death to America, death to Israel.
In wrestling, they call that the heel.
The heel. Yeah. So Iran plays the role of the heel. Death to America, death to Israel. They got more Jews in Iran than anywhere else. They're not. They love the Jews. They love them.
Yep.
I mean, so this is, and if you wouldn't know that based on what some of the news and the media and how some of the Muslims are confused about, but Iran plays that role so that you can at least be like, well, man, I mean, that's at least extreme. Even if you don't like the Zionists, you could be like, well, I mean, damn, you just want them dead. So, I mean, they got to defend themselves, right? They have the right. You hear the narrative. They have the right to exist. They have the right to defend themselves. So therefore, they're really attacking, but they just call it defense. Why? Because you can keep pointing to some boogeyman somewhere that says, hey, if we get the chance, we're going to wipe you out. They have to say that so that they can keep getting funding, arms, and military equipment, because their funding is supplied by the US of A and other allies. Their military equipment and their a lot of their infrastructure is supported by probably people living elsewhere. But in order for that to be even palatable for a lot of people, it's not palatable. They're upset about it, but they say, well, if we don't do it, they're going to wipe those people off the map. And they just, so it's a justification. It's a weak justification, but you have to realize that's why it's there. So these theatrics are just to kind of get you to accept, what they're trying to do. Or they have this squabble with Iran so that maybe you will forget about what they're actually doing in Gaza, which is worse.
Yeah.
Which is actually bad. So like you alluded to, Jafar, where they drop a few bombs here and there. Nobody's there. They clear the place out. I was looking at a report that said they literally emptied out the place a couple days in advance. You know, they had the satellite showing the trucks like taking everything that was valuable out of the place or whatever. Okay, then they bomb the places. Why? So and then they fire a few rockets over there in Tel Aviv, you know, and so where the Muslims are like, Iran's going to do something. Iran is not going to do anything. Not anything significant. They never do. They never will, actually. They're good friends, good buddies with the United States. But I will say this, and I'll let you guys jump in, is that Allah even says about the people, a lot of these people who fight against Islam, تحسبهم جميعا وقلوبهم شتى. You think they're together, but their hearts are really divided. So they have almost like a friendship of convenience.
Yeah.
But at a moment's notice, they really would rather stab the other in the back if they could. Right now, they're kind of dependent on each other.
Right.
Israel is heavily dependent on the United States for its goals. But the United States is allegedly a Christian nation. And, you know, the Zionists are allegedly a Jewish nation. And they are the most diametrically opposed as far as theology. One believes someone is Allah walked around the earth. The other one believes that he was a liar and his mother was.
Yeah, and he's rotten in hell.
Oh, looks like he froze on us.
May Allah get with Mark Ethernet cables, inshallah.
Yeah, but yeah, I was gonna mention that. Mark, can you hear us?
He's just lagging. Next time I come to his house, inshallah,
you got a hard wire.
I'll Amazon Prime him a LAN cable.
Well, Mark mentioned it. That's the one thing I wanted to point out is like there's always something when something like big like this happens, like we're allegedly going to get into a war, right? There's always something they're trying to take your attention away from.
Yes.
Right, and which is the one thing we've been talking about for the last 2 or 3 years has been the genocide in Gaza. Right?
Yep.
What haven't we been talking about in the last few weeks?
Yeah, we're talking
about Iran and all that, right? So that's one of the reasons why like this is happening is like, okay, we need to somehow smoothly get into Gaza, take it over, yada yada. So let's go start a little basically fireworks show. Not to say that people aren't being affected, but you have to look at it from the people that are actually in charge. And some people might be thinking, oh, well, what about the people dying? Don't they care about their citizens and all that? No, they don't.
Absolutely not.
They don't care. All of us are expendable. We're all expendable in this game for the people that are actually in power, right? Yeah. These billionaires, these high-level politicians, we're all expendable. We're just numbers, right? And I was thinking about this because now you see a lot of videos coming out about these political commentators, especially in America, talking about like, why are we spending billions of dollars to support Israel? What is the benefit? What are we getting out of it? Well, we're the people that are asking that question from a taxpayer, a citizen perspective, which you can say like, what are we getting out of it? Right? We aren't getting anything out of it, but that's not the right question to ask. You got to look at it it's the right question to ask, but you got to look at it from a different perspective. If you are the elite that are in power, then you say, okay, what are we getting out of it? Right. And then you might have a different answer. Oh, I can see why we're spending billions of dollars over there because it's enhancing our control in the Middle East. It's enhancing our control maybe over oil or shipping routes and all these different things. And then you're like, okay, now I see why it's worth billions of dollars. Now I see why it was worth sending Americans over there to die in a fake war looking for weapons of mass destruction. Right. Then it starts to make sense.
Absolutely. And like to piggyback off of what Jaffer just said, the higher ups, the elites of these countries, right? Be it America, be it Israel, be it Iran, right? They're able to deem certain things as necessary sacrifices to achieve their ultimate end goal. All right. So like in chess, you'll sacrifice a rook if you know you're gonna win a queen, and vice versa, or just to distract somebody, right? So hey, America is currently in a crisis and has been for years. There is the inflation of every item. All right, gas is to the roof. Eggs are like $12 a carton, right? So to distract you from your problems, right? Hey, let's go start a war in Iran. We're going to join the war in Israel for Iran on the behalf, right? That is the goal. We want to distract you from what's going on. And how it plays out is uh, after years go by, right? We're going to pin the blame on one person, one state, one individual, whatever. And this is what happens. Like in World War II, for example, right? There was so many demons living at that point in time who were just awful. Winston Churchill, all right, one of the worst people who ever lived. Benito Mussolini, one of the worst people who ever lived by far. You know who we put the blame on in history? Hitler.
Yeah.
They make it seem like Hitler's the only bad person to ever live in history. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. But the Yahud, they deemed that the Holocaust was a necessary sacrifice for their ultimate goal. What was their ultimate goal? Hey, we're going to now destroy the entirety of the Middle East, carve it all up, and give this land to who? The Yahud. We deserve this land now. Why didn't they just go back to Germany? It's not what we want to do, because it's part of their plan. All right, it's how it's going to operate. When the Ottomans joined freaking the Axis powers in World War I, they said, "Hey, listen, that was sorry for you, but our plan is not to have you still be a power. We're going to carve you up. So now the Ottoman Empire, you guys are just Turkey. That's it. Nothing else. Everywhere else, we're going to give you kings, queens, dictatorships, but not you be a power at all. It's not our ultimate goal. Our goal is to get rid of you as soon as we can."
Yep. And if you look at it, like even in the Ummah, right? And if you look at that map of like the greater Israel plan of what they plan on, eventually what they want Israel to be, Allah knows best whether they'll achieve that or not. But we were talking about this, earlier today or yesterday about, which Muslim countries actually operate off of Sharia, right? And we say like, well, technically none, right? There's some that have Sharia elements as part of their law, but none of them actually function off a total Sharia government, right? And you look at and people, especially Muslims, might not know this because they you go to Saudi, you go to UAE, and all these different Muslim countries, even Pakistan and Malaysia, and you're like, oh, it's there's Muslims here. This is a Muslim country. Well, when you actually look into it and people actually know more about this stuff, these are all secular countries. Right? They have secular laws with some Islam listed in. There might be Muslims running the countries, but they're operating on secularism, right? That's what they really function off of. Okay. So and you look at that map of the greater Israel, what they plan to see, like, and Sunni Muslims should not be tricked into thinking that and this is for our Shiite people that adhere to Shiaism, Shiite, whatever, don't think that a country that is basically not functioning off the Quran and the Sunnah or Sunni Islam is going to be the savior of the Muslim Ummah, right? Don't fool yourself to think that that's what's going to happen, okay? That's not what's going to happen. And there's so many examples throughout history. People that actually know this stuff will just say, no, this is the same thing that they always do and that they've been doing since they existed. Okay, and it's not to say that this, like we said, we're talking about the leaders of the countries. We're not talking about the individual citizens, because we all care about Islam. We all care about human beings, especially Muslims, but we all care about human beings that are suffering and being oppressed and being transgressed upon. But don't think that, like, we have these debates all the time, like, oh, we should unite with the Shiites and go do this and go do that. If Iran really, really, really wanted to go free Palestine, they could make a serious effort and go do that. But they won't. Why? Because it puts them at risk. It goes against the actual overall plan of what they all want to do. Okay, yeah, you go take Palestine and Gaza and all that. We'll put up a little fight. We'll play the bad guy because we're going to get whatever benefit, right? Just like all these people that were all these Muslim, quote unquote, Muslim countries that were trying to wine and dine President Trump to get whatever benefits that he could offer them, right?
I saw a video, John. Speaking of that, I saw a video when Trump came to the UAE. They had this freaking, like, those girls doing a little like hair thing. Yeah, I was like, oh, the heck am I seeing here, bro? Like, the Muslim countries, listen, and this is something that, like, kind of irks, because, like, you'll see, like, people who live in these Muslim countries in the East or whatever, right? They'll be like, oh, how can you comment on like what's going on here when you're in the West, bro? Listen, I have never seen any of the strategy that I've ever seen in the entirety of the West do something like that for Trump. Like, come on, there, like you guys are some of the most unserious Muslims we have, and y'all talk about you niggas in the West, bro. Do you see what y'all doing? Y'all are actively aiding and abetting the Yahud. Like y'all can't be serious, real. All right, shucking and diving for master. Talk about us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sense. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we hear
you. It's like they're in a position of like after them, like they're paying the jizya. They're paying jizya to Trump, and or to America. You see all the gifts and those investments in infrastructure and all that. This is like a form of jizya that they're paying to America for them not to either attack them themselves or allow anyone else to attack them. Because just like we were talking about how Iran, like if the United States allowed Iran to attack Saudi, they would do it. And they would take over that country. Iran is way more powerful than Saudi as far as manpower, military power. Yeah, they would crush them. But the only reason, if you look at Saudi's military, it's weak as heck. It's weak. I mean, I was looking at some reports where they don't even really train their soldiers that well because they don't want them turning around and taking over the country. So they really it's kind of like a little puppet setup. But so the only reason why Iran doesn't take over Saudi now is just because the USA said you can't. That's it. And the reason why that is because the Saudis they give lots of
oil
money, and they deal in US dollars and do all those things in these business deals, which are very lucrative for the United States and those people who are in power. So they say, no, we're making money off this deal. Well, they're going to stay there, and you Shia stay over there. Because make no mistake about it, the Shia have a more they want to overrun and take over the Sunni Muslim, populations who are in control of the Haramain more than any crusader ever wanted. The crusader just wants to do it because just for kicks.
Yeah,
they have a religious and a Aqidah type of justification for why they should be doing it. So it's stronger than that. So these are things that you have to understand. So the only reason why Iran is not attacking who they already say is their enemy, which is Saudi, is because the USA won't let them. But they will throw a few rockets at Tel Aviv, at the Jews, even though you got some in your backyard. How about you smack them around first? You got a bunch running around and you but they won't do it. But the reasons are clear. I'm not advocating for why they should do that. But if they really are saying death to the Jews, I mean, you got one. There's one right there. So maybe they should change the slogan to "Death to Zionism" or whatever. Or something like that. Maybe it would be more accurate.
And if you make Mubarak's capping about the whole military power of Saudi, you hate mine El Tavi, right? In the whole Mahdi situation, they had Mecca on lockdown for 3 weeks. It was just some stragglers. Like they had the whole place cooked up. Niggas they had them captains and stuff for 3 whole weeks. Come on, the military is unserious in Saudi. Let's not kid ourselves here. It's not a military power by any means. They're not even trying to be.
And this is another reason why I kind of just at a certain point. I always like people that really are know about the in-depth ongoings of political, turmoil and stuff that's going on in the political scene. And I get interested, but then I always at a certain point I just tune out because once you start you see there's so many different dots to connect and different levels to it. Because right now we're just talking about really 4 entities, right? Israel, United States, Palestine, and Iran. But for sure, some of these things that are going on also have impact and reasons dealing with Russia,
China,
stuff that's going on in Africa. There's all these things connect, and only the people that are really behind the scenes and at a very top level know how all these things connect. And while we're seeing one thing and think, oh yeah, this connect, we're not actually seeing the whole picture, right? But you just for sure, it's not what they're actually putting on the TV screen for you.
Mm-hmm. A prime example of that is the U.S. attack on the Iranian bases, right? Is that they had ships and freaking flights flying directly over there towards there, right? But then they flew these B-2 bombers 18 hours across the other way of the world to attack them. So they're showing you, oh, we have a front here, we're attacking you at this point. And then the B-2 bombers coming 18 hours, non-stop flights, refilling in midair and bomb you from behind you. That's like, they're not going to show you their play up front. It's like, hey, look. Now behind you though, watch out.
You know. And another thing that you have to realize is that every country has to have a kind of a big brother, a chaperone, a protector, so to speak. Otherwise, they would get eaten up. Like if you look at some small countries, the only reason why they are just not swallowed up by some other country.
Allies.
If you look at it, we can digress a little bit throughout history. Countries just conquest. It was always just constant conquest, and people just took over this land, took over that land, whatever. So you might have, like the conquistadors, the Spaniards came in and they way across the pond, and taken over areas that are, not even adjacent to each other.
Yep.
So now the way that's done is that a small country will just say, hey, listen, we will have some trade agreements, some immigration agreements, some whatever agreements with y'all. You keep that bigger guy from messing with us, and we'll just, we'll be up under your umbrella, but we'll look independent. So, and so there's levels. And so even the bigger countries, like you might look at a country like Iran or Saudi or Jordan or even Egypt. All of these countries have a big brother that they have to play nice with. Otherwise, they might be left to their own devices. So some of this geopolitical positioning is because, for instance, some of these, like for Iran, for instance, they may rather China as a big brother than the United States. Might be more lucrative. Say, hey, listen, because the United States and China are not necessarily going to go bang head to head outright. That would be like crazy, right? If they just said, oh, so imagine if Donald Trump sent the B-52 bombers and bombed something in China. Oh, it's on.
It's on, yeah, for sure.
I mean, they're not going to do that, but for Iran, they rough them up. So it might be a thing where some of it has to do with the USA might say, listen, we're going to drop these bombs to show you that we will let people know that, or just to show China. Yeah, we control these these individuals, some of it might be something like that. Or maybe Iran might have been, given the googly eyes or flirting with China a little bit more than they liked. Mm-hmm. It could be have something to do with that. So the point is that don't ever look at these countries and the moves that they're making, as we said, as they're independent. They're all interconnected, and sometimes something happens over here to show another country or to show that, hey, we're strong and we're taking care of business. We're in control over here. Now, whether they buy it or not is a different story. But every country has a big brother, so to speak. Iran's big brother is actually America. Israel's big brother is actually America too.
Satan.
But Israel's a little sneaky, and they do a little bit extra stuff, but to kind of get a little bit more leverage. But make no mistake about it, America gives a lot of money to Israel, and Israel serves a purpose for America to kind of like keep things mucked up and keep things destabilized in the Middle East, so they can keep benefiting.
Yeah, and if you look at Israel, like I don't know why people. I mean, I do know why, but when you understand Israel is not like its own sovereign country, but as like a Puerto Rico to the United States, like it's the state of the United States. It's one of our territories. Let's be real. And not only is it one of our states of the United States, it's the most powerful state in the United States. That's just not in the United States. Like we look at, if we take Israel out the picture, right? You have powerful states like New York, California, like the states that supposedly have the most electoral votes, right? It's the ones that swing elections.
DC.
Well, the most powerful state is of the United States is Israel, right? That they have AIPAC, they have all they are functioning for, like Mark said, functioning for us over in the Middle East. So they're going to get aid, just like New York or Virginia or California gets federal aid. They're going to get the aid. They get the most aid, right? And they're going to function like that until that relationship is broken up. And when you understand that, then these things aren't really that surprising when you see like, oh, well, all the money that's going over there and how much we're supporting them and how much they influence our politicians and all that. And another thing I wanted to say is, when you take out the human factor and you realize that these people that are in charge are looking at lives just like cents, dollar bills, or whatever, like you're just a number, right? That's it. And when you have things like it could be as complicated as like, we're not going to go down the roads of like big conspiracy theories and connecting all the dots. Some things are also as simple as, okay, how can we benefit off of something we need to do? And if you look at, right, what is the biggest industry? And I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's a real big one. A big industry in the United States is weapons, right? Arms, military arms. Makes a lot of money. It's big business. And what happens if you're buying weapons? You're like a big industry is buying and selling weapons, and the buyer, for instance, Amr, if I'm selling you, chili oil for your restaurant, and it was big business, but guess what? Your warehouse is now full of chili oil. And it's like, and me as being a seller, I'm like, okay, dang, my number one buyers are like, they're stocked up. So what are you going to do?
I have to give you a reason to use it.
You're going to go use a bunch of chili oil. Or I'm going to try to find some way for you to use all your chili oil to clear out your warehouse, right? So that you could buy more. And how can we both benefit? If you look at that with the terms of weapons, it's like, okay, we got all these weapons. We got all these missiles. We got all these bombs.
Let's start a war.
I need to sell more. You know what? Start just making a show of fireworks. Throw them at the Iron Dome. You can use your weapons. Israel used their rockets to defend them. The United States could do some bombs. They can maybe even test some or whatever. And meanwhile, me, the gun runner, I'm going to make some more and then sell a whole bunch more back to you. So there's all these different things that play into these things that are going on in the world. And we just want to remind people, like, don't get distracted by it, right? Don't get too caught up on it. Keep focus on what's going on, and just know that, and this is my belief, and I believe this is definitely supported by the Quran and Sunnah. No matter what they do, no matter what they plot, Allah is the best of planners.
Yep.
Right? And it may seem like we don't see the full picture. We don't see the end game. And it may seem like, oh, Muslims are so weak and they're taking over this, they're taking over that. We can't defend ourselves. Know for sure that whatever they're doing, even though it may appear bad for the Ummah while it's happening, it's actually part of Allah's plan. It's actually going to work out better for us.
Yeah.
Right? How many people you watch these Dawah channels? There's so many people becoming Muslim simply because they're seeing what's going on in Palestine. They're asking questions. Who is this big boogeyman? The Muslims and this and that. And a lot of things are getting debunked. This is really what's going on, and all this notoriety that Muslims are getting around the world, all the Islamophobia, is actually bringing more and more people to Islam. It's projected that around 2050, in the United States, the number one religion is going to be Muslims, right? And no matter what they do, they can't stop that, right? There's going to be a point in time where, we have the end times and all that. Allah knows best when they have, but Islam is always going to flourish. Like it says Allah says in the Holy Quran, they try to extinguish the light of Allah, but they can't. Okay.
I mean, all right. So there's one comment in the chat that triggered a whole history tangent in my head. So I don't know how long I want to rant for on this, but he's talking. But so for the person in chat, you found that on Reddit, cool. The thing is, right? The Jewish people have always lived in the Middle East. They've always lived in Africa. They've always lived in parts of the world, right? So no, they don't have a homeland. and they don't really need one because home is wherever you're born at, right? So if you're a Jewish person who was born in the Middle East, that's your home.
Yeah.
You don't have to move somewhere else. That is the place that you live. Yes. And no, Muslims have never hated the Jews. That's not how it works. It's not part of our faith to hate the Jews. Famously, when the Muslims first conquered Jerusalem and they won it from the Christians, what did the Muslims do? Umar ibn al-Khattab, he said, hey, go find me like 70 Jewish families, whatever, and bring them back to the Holy Land so they can live here. That's what Muslims have done. The most famous rabbi of all time, Rambam, Musa ibn Maimonides. He was born where? In Cordoba. All right. He grew up speaking Arabic. That was the official language. He then traveled and helped out Salahuddin al-Ayyubi in the Crusades. He was his freaking physician. So some of the best Jewish people who ever lived. All right. Maimonides is considered to be the greatest rabbi of all time. He was born in Muslim Spain. He lived his life around Muslims. He was called Musa ibn Maimun. Like, duh. All right. So this whole fallacy, no, Muslims don't hate the Jewish people, don't hate the Christians. It's not how it works. All right. Islam is accepting of all the Abrahamic faiths. The problem is people, they stray from that, they go to other things. And I can assure you, whatever religions that are being practiced in Israel is not Judaism, and it's certainly not Christianity. It's so far from that. And just we get so caught up inside of these freaking false flags where folks will do things. Okay, we're gonna start 9/11, and 9/11 is gonna happen so that we can go overseas and do what we need to do. Right? You are getting caught up into that. No, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because the powers that be, the powers that are above us, they're gonna always do what they're gonna do. Right? But it's not going to stop what God has planned, as Jafar said. All right? Because I promise you, when the what do they call it? The Genghis Khan, the Mongols, right? When the Mongols came and they sacked Baghdad and they killed every Muslim in the city and threw the entire like Beit Mal in the river and destroyed all the books. The people said, "Oh, Islam is shortly cooked." The Mongols were coming to attack Asham, and the Crusaders were also invading. So you had the Mongols on one side, the Crusaders on the other side. Guess what? Islam survived. Like Islam's always going to survive. The amount of Muslims back then to now, we dwarf them. There's billions now. Back then, it started off, there were 313 Sahabas who fought at Badr. Look at where we are now. So we may not be as strong as them, but the numbers are going to keep growing, inshallah. And we have to, like, because I see this all the time too about like the Sunni Muslims, like, oh, these guys and other Sunni Muslims are just, they're so scared. Don't go crazy in the Shia. Like, okay, yeah, they're doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Just because the other Sunnis are slacking, this is again propaganda because the Shia are going to play in your face. Oh, look at, see, you Sunnis are scared. This is what happened in Karbala, and this is going to affect you if you're not studious in your religion, if you don't know your religion at all. So don't get swayed by the theatrics. All right, all this is, there's a role to play. All right, I remember watching a movie, right, and this dude was talking about this freaking, it was like these soldiers, right, Jaffer? They're all in a movie. They're all together. They're all from across the world, India, yada, Pakistan, Germany, whatever, right? And so this American dude was like, oh, the best soldier here is definitely this IDF lady. And so like all this propaganda, all you live through the lens of propaganda. All right, so don't buy into it. Stick firm to your religion. Islam is going to be okay. No, we don't hate the Jews. We never have. We're not anti-Semitic. All right. Most of the Jews nowadays are freaking white people, so they're not even Semites. All right, that's not how it works. So just keep that in mind, inshallah, and try your best to not get too swayed by these things, because sometimes, like, listen, I understand. My wife had to go off Instagram because every day for the past year or so there'd just be some dead kid there from Gaza. Yep, it's hard to see, but again, the powers that be say, hey, this is a necessary sacrifice for all the goals, because let's believe if every Muslim country came together, they could easily stop the nation of Israel. I mean, they might get killed for it after, but hey, they can stop it right now. But they're not going to do that. So keep that in mind, inshallah.
With that, you can close us out. If you guys have any questions, you guys can email us at emailr2f@gmail.com or to leave comments in the chat section, and we'll try to address them on our next show.
I mean, I had I had more to say, but I'll save it for a different show. The only thing I guess is that Lahut Lama Khan is still in Pakistan. For those of you who are not aware, that right there
If World War III starts, we all got to go to Lulamakhan.
will be safe there. Will be safe there? Probably not. Don't go there. But listen though, for everyone, inshallah, tune in next week. Our next show is going to be as serious as this one, but it's going to cover 20 years of information. And inshallah, we'll go over those 20 years of information on the next show, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Never forget Lahut Lama Khan is still in Pakistan.